shot in ping pong.
We can play
Oh,
double shot.
That's why you're saying.
So.
Jeff, you probably thought, oh,
Right.
double shot?
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I totally misinterpreted that one, Jake. Well, bar is open. Great
Where
story.
are you going, Tyson?
Open.
Where are you going?
It's not even lunchtime. You're having a lunch.
Dave Taggart,
It's up.
past team trainer.
Hey, Jay, well, how's,
After 12.
What's up?
how's Lauren's?
Okay.
lessons?
It was pretty bad Tuesday.
Wait, we gotta wait for Val.
Tuesday's a long day.
We gotta wait for Val.
Yeah. I don't know why he wouldn't be.
Does anyone have got to, can you
Find a
Skype
place from
in?
Jeff for me?
Can you?
Everybody Skyped out at the same time. Where are you? There he is.
There he is.
Oh,
here.
you just missed
He's here.
a mass Skype.
Actually, we're all gonna Skype you. Scott says you just missed his presentation, right, Scott?
I'm in the way here, I think that's what I would have
No,
said.
once I get it turned on, it'll be fine.
Missed it.
I just finished that.
Put on my jacket, so it looks official, unofficially. Okay. All right. My journey started January 4th, 2012, when my father passed away. And I felt at that time that he passed away and he was way too young. He was 76 years old and basically only had 3 years of quality retirement. He retired at the age of 66 as a professor at Southern Utah State University, and suffered with heart surgery, and then he got cancer. And the thing that concerned me about that was he was a good man. He was healthy and never smoked, never drank, and so I didn't stand a chance in hell of living past 60. So I decided that I would do research and find out what I could do to change my life and to avoid that so that I would have a longer life. And so the story unfolds, and my research very quickly took me to a story of a man named David Hudson. And David Hudson was a cotton farmer in Arizona. He farmed about 7,000 acres of cotton. And the problem that he had was that he could only plant and harvest the cotton every 3 years. So he was rotating different sections of the land. And there were a lot of problems down there. First of all, there's no soil, it's just crushed rock. And so he's constantly trying to find ways to improve and grow, and wanted to be able to grow year-round, every single year with the cotton. So he finally started doing some experimenting and acquired some land that was considered toxic. The term for it is actually black alkali. And this is what it looks like when you see it. If you're ever driving around, this is white alkali, but black is very, very similar to it. It's just very dark. But it's considered salt, and nothing can grow on property like that. Well, what he did was rather fascinating. He decided, you know, you're given lemons, so you make lemonade. He was given this land and thought, I can produce gold. So he took all of his heavy equipment that he used for agriculture and was able to pile up big heaps of dirt and sprinkle cyanide over the top of it. We do that here in Utah. Barrett Merker has gone through the old tailings at Ophir and Merker, and they're leaching out any residual gold that's there, and there's quite a bit in the soil. So he started to do that and realized he was getting gold, but he wasn't getting as much as he thought he should get, and there was something else very mysterious that was contained in the samples he kept getting, and it was white. And it was this stuff. He didn't know what it was, and so he started to do tests. He took it to labs, and it was testing as gold, but non-metallic. And This is, the structure of this is actually a monoatomic, it's a monoatomic element. And so it's not got any metallic left in it. And there are some properties to it that I found extremely helpful and rather fascinating. And what I want to focus on here are some of the healing properties that I discovered that have helped me. But I want to tell you a couple of these other fascinating properties. Number one, if you put monoatomic gold, which is in a white powder form, in the sunlight it explodes. Has a high energy content, very high energy. And if you, when they took it into the lab to test it, they put it in a crucible to weigh it. And guess what? There was no weight. And they, like, that can't be. How can there be no weight? The crucible itself has to weigh something. So they dumped it out, put it on, and then there was weight. And so it has what are called 0-point gravity properties that makes things around it lighter. And think about that for a minute. If you had a way to fly a spaceship to make things lighter than they appear, very, very interesting. But I want to get to the healing properties of this because this is where I found huge, greatest benefits. This is what it looks like. And it's not what you think. It's not. It doesn't come from Columbia.
We know all about
it comes from southern Utah. And so, yeah, audience is not supposed to interact with me. I'm kidding. This is what it looks like. You actually buy this on the internet. When there were many things that I found that were so striking and so profound about this, and this is one of them. I have read Exodus in probably 6 languages. I don't know how many times I've read this passage, and I'd never thought of it in terms like this. So, Moses has just come down off of Mount Horeb carrying the tablets, and he hears this noise. And he turns to Joshua and he says, "Joshua, what is that I'm hearing?" And he said, "Oh, they're rejoicing because you've come back down off the mountain." And as they get closer, Moses said, "They aren't rejoicing at all. They're not even glad to see me. They're making merry and getting drunk and worshiping an idol." And he was furious and he threw the tablets down. And so what did he do? He took the calf the people had made and burned it in the fire. Then he ground it to powder and sprinkled it in the water and made them drink it. Now you think about that for a minute. What happens if you put gold into a fire? Well, nothing. It just becomes molten. It doesn't change its structure. It still stays metallic. So there's another process, and I haven't had the time to go back into the original text and translate it and see what it actually says and see if there's something missing. But I believe that there's something missing there. He actually was able to change the structure of it and turn it into the monatomic element. And to bring them to their senses, he put it in the water and had them drink it. You wake up and say, "Look, the error of your ways." And that's some of the properties that you have with this monoatomic gold. It's also called manna. It's also called Ormus. So you think about manna, this is an artist's rendition of what somebody would interpret from the Old Testament as to what these women are doing. They're gathering manna off the ground. So we know from the text, the ancient text, that the dew in the morning would make this rise to the top of the soil. But it wasn't in balls. It wasn't like they're portraying. What they were doing was they're taking baskets of this powder and used it like flour. And they were able to make it into bread. And that's one of the benefits of this monoatomic gold, or this manna, Ormus, whatever you want to call it, is that you can eat this in this form right here as bread, and you wouldn't have to eat for 4 or 5 days. It takes care of your hunger. It provides all the nutrients that your body needs. Rather spectacular when you think about it. So that's what they're doing. They're gathering the manna. The Egyptians referred to this a lot. And in fact, monoatomic gold, the history of it goes back to 4000 BC in Samaria. And the Egyptians did it in a very special way. They took it and made it into cones. And they called the cones bread. And you'll see it in depictions all over the place. Here it is represented with the two ankhs, the ankhs of life, that represent the journey from east to west, life and death, and the Nile, and then the Delta, which came all the wealth of Egypt. That's the ankh, and this perpetuated the ankh. And it's represented even today in all the hieroglyphics there as bread. They were feeding it to the priests, and they were feeding it to the pharaohs all the way along. It's everywhere. But who would have thought? Bread. I can understand that. In Arabic, it's called aish, and aish also means life. And it all started to make sense to me as I was going through this. Now, Flinders Petrie, in the late 1800s, discovered an Egyptian temple in all places, Sinai. It was like up in the mountain, nothing there, discovers this Egyptian temple. And when they went in, they found these vaults, and one of the vaults was unbroken. It was completely sealed. And the room, as you can see, quite long, was packed with white powder. And nobody knew what it was. Nobody knew what it was. So it doesn't exist anymore. They just destroyed it, threw it away, didn't know what it was. And it's only been recently, in the last 30 or 40 years, that we found out the value of it. Which brought me to this part of the journey, which I thought was also fascinating, being a scholar of the original text of the Bible. Worship. We call it a house of worship. These are temples. This is the temple at Luxor and the temple of Karnak. And if you've been there, you know how massive they are. They're just massive. But they don't make sense. It just doesn't make sense the way they're constructed and what they do. And so if you go back 700 years, there was a K in the word worship. So put that together. And if you go back even further, you probably will see an I change to an O. It becomes workshop. Temples were refineries. That's where they refined the gold. They took the raw gold and changed the structure so that they'd have plenty of it to supply the priests and pharaohs of the country. Rather fascinating way to look at it, because there are temples everywhere all around the world. This was probably my most astonishing, revealing aha moment, because I, again, have seen this story so many times. Here's a depiction, that's a good depiction, I think, of the three wise men, also known as Magi. And the story there is fascinating. They were actually chemists who lived in the East, and they knew what they were doing. And what did they bring to the Christ child? Gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Now, you say, well, why did they bring these gifts? And what I grew up with was because they wanted to make sure that they were valuable, right? And Joseph and Mary could sell them and secure the future for Jesus. I don't believe that anymore. I don't believe that. Because the Egyptians used to combine frankincense with the white gold, the monoatomic gold, and eat it, consume it that way. And so what the wise men did was they were guaranteeing the health of Jesus. They were using this to mix together to make sure that he was free from disease, and that he would have a healthy immune system, and would also get some things that would enhance his gifts of prophecy and that type of thing. And there are people that will tell you that when you take the monoatomic gold, that it will enhance certain aspects, clairvoyance and things like that. It hasn't happened to me yet. If that happened to me, I'd probably be in Las Vegas. I could predict the dice. But that was a really strong, revealing moment to me. It's starting to make sense, these things. Because Joseph and Mary, let me go back to that. They had all these kids. There's a family. They were poor. I've been in Nazareth. I've seen where they lived. Joseph was a carpenter, so he didn't get rich off the gold. They were using it to ensure the health of the baby Jesus. Now, there's a company, or an institute, the Alpha Learning Institute in Switzerland, who started to do some experiments with this. And they studied behavioral issues like ADD, ADHD, learning disabilities, things that are inhibiting the learning process, which is important to us, right? So this study, I know that it's not the greatest picture, but it's the only one available from the study. So let me try to explain it to you. This is the left hemisphere, or the left side of the brain. This is the right. Now, if you look at it closely, you'll notice that this side is overwhelmingly blue, and this side is minimally red. So I learned it from this study. I learned that this side of the brain, left side of the brain, is our facts, our business, these types of things that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, that we're doing more and more all the time in the world we're in, dealing with change. We have rapid change. The right side is dealing with emotion, love, those types of things. And so we don't have a balance in what we're doing. The Learning Institute believes that these are things that cause us not to be able to learn or function normally in society or in an educational environment today. So they did an experiment, and guess what? Immediately taking Ethereum gold, another word for white gold, powdered manna, Ormus, it automatically brings both sides of your brain into harmony. You can suddenly focus. I can't describe what happened to me. I can't quite put my finger on it. The minute that I took this, it was like this calm feeling came over me. And it wasn't like I was stoned or high, and don't ask me how I know it, those are lies. But it was this calming sensation. And I'll never forget the minute that I took it. I was at home, and I drove into work, and the music sounded better. And I couldn't believe the conversations I was having with people. The things that I've said, the things that you've said to me, I'm looking at it in a different way, and I can't quite put my finger on it. This morning, I was having a real struggle today because I cut out some medication that I was taking, I've been taking for the last 2 or 3 weeks, and I was just not right. It was just wrong. And I took some, and immediately I felt the effects. And suddenly I felt like I had all this energy and all this spunk, and I was enthusiastic about coming in here and being with you today. And so I don't think we know or understand the benefits that are out there. And it's all natural. It can't hurt you. It can't hurt you. You can't overdose from it. So let's talk about some of the other things that I discovered. What happens with the DNA when the gold powder hits it, or the gold, is that it unravels the DNA strand. And then it ravels back up. But when it ravels back up, it does it in a very unusual way. It does it based on the memory that we had when we were born. So if there's a disease, some problem, something that's not supposed to be there, the memory says, that's wrong. Let's take care of that. And it rekindles itself, rejuvenates itself, and goes back to the way it should have been originally. Now think of the possibilities. Think about what it is for cancer. If somebody gets cancer, what do we do? How do we treat that today? We kill it. We go in and we kill it. And we don't really think about what are the results of doing that. How is that going to affect the individual? You might as well, at a certain point, just put a gun to their head. That would kill the cancer. But what if we had a way to go internally and work with this at a structural level that is uninvasive, that doesn't hurt us? And so, in addition to the white gold, frankincense is curing cancer today at all stages, at all types, but not in the United States. They're having major success in Europe, And you'll never guess where else, the Middle East, where frankincense comes from. Myrrh also is able to treat a wide range of maladies. The Romans used myrrh, when the Roman soldiers, to heal pain and to heal their wounds. So if we think about things as it passes on, think about your family, your genes, diabetes, heart disease, MS, the list goes on. It's all around us, right? It's everywhere. It's totally invasive. What if we had a way to fix that? So in my life, I have said, I have no chance. My father was a good man. I'm not such a good man. No, I'm a good guy. But I'm going to assume I've got cancer of some sort. And so what is the harm in pre-treating that and heading it off at the pass? And so that's what I'm doing. And I can't tell you enough of how it's changed my life and the way I feel. So I'm going to say that my journey has become a quest, that every day I'm learning more and more and more about how to make me whole, how to make me healthy, how to respond better, the things that I need to do in order to be productive in the environments in which I find myself. And so with that, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you have at a later time. Raleigh.
Where do you get this stuff?
Oh, okay, so is it all right if I answer some questions? You want to cut it off?
How many shares of stock do you have in this company?
So I own the company.